we have some questions about rocks for you. Are you ready to give us some answers?
Oh, yes, I'd love to.
Okay.
Why do some rocks look like crystals?
So why do some rocks look like crystals? Is that your question? All right. That's a really good question. Actually, what's cool about rocks is they're all made up of crystals. So crystals are kind of the building blocks of rocks. So all rocks have crystals in them, but sometimes the crystals are really, really small so you can't see them. Where sometimes the crystals get really, really big, and the ones with really big crystals, then the rocks kind of look like crystals. You know what I mean? Do you have any rocks like that that have really big crystals?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah?
We
Yeah,
do see them
so
in our classroom, yeah. So they all
cool.
have crystals, we just can't see them all.
Yeah, sometimes they're really, really tiny and you have to use a microscope to see them. But sometimes they're really big, so you can see them with your eyes.
That's interesting. Wow, we learned something already. Thank you. Okay, the next person's going to come up.
Hi!
Why are some rocks smooth?
Why are some rocks smooth? Oh, that's a really good question. A lot of rocks seem pretty bumpy, but some of them are really smooth. And I brought a rock from my backyard. I don't know if you can see this, but it's a really smooth rock. And this is a rock that's from a riverbed. So it's actually been smoothed by water. So that's one way that rocks can get really smooth. And this one was probably in a river for quite some time and got nice and weathered down. It's a really nice and soft, smooth rock. So that's one way that you can make rocks smooth. And here's another rock. This is another rock that's pretty smooth. This one's from the beach near where I live. And in this case, the water from the ocean made it really smooth. So those are a couple ways you can make rocks really smooth. But then, of course, another way to make them smooth is just by polishing them. So humans, you and I, we can go in and polish our rocks and make them nice and smooth. But if you want a rock that's smooth by nature, a really good place to find one is at a riverbed. So if you have a river nearby, you can go look around and the rocks there are probably pretty smooth. That's a great question. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Why are rocks hard?
Why are rocks hard? Well, that's a really good question because it's actually kind of a hard question to answer. I mean, a lot of rocks are very hard, but some are also soft. So it goes back to the crystals and what kind of crystals make up that rock. So if you have hard crystals making up the rock, like quartz, it's going to be a pretty hard rock. But if you have some softer crystals, like maybe halite or salt or something, that's going to be pretty soft. So it really just depends. It just depends on what kind of rock you're looking at, and so what kind of crystals there are inside. Great question. That one's kind of hard to answer.
Why are rocks bumpy?
Why are rocks bumpy? Well, that kind of goes back to the smooth question. So here's another rock that I have. You can see this one's got lots of texture on it, and it's kind of rough. This is a rock that we just found over by one of the volcanoes. It's a volcanic rock, and it's all bumpy because it hasn't been anywhere near water, and it hasn't been weathered to be smooth. It just broke off from a larger rock, and it's got nice bumps on it. And so a lot of rocks that you find are like that, and there are little bitty crystals in here that stick out and different things happen. But basically, most rocks are bumpy just because they haven't had a weathering process to make them smooth like the river rock. You can see they're pretty different. I don't know if you can see that very well, but this one's nice and bumpy, and then this one's nice and smooth. So a lot of rocks are bumpy just because they haven't been introduced to like water or different ways to make them smooth. Do you guys have a lot of bumpy rocks in your classroom? Yeah. Seems like most of the rocks I find are pretty bumpy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was great. We could see those rocks to see the difference.
Why are rocks heavy?
Why are rocks heavy? Well, some rocks are very, very heavy, and it's hard to pick them up. Again, it goes back to like what makes up the rock. I have a rock here. I don't know if you can see it, but this rock has lots and lots of air bubbles in it.
Oh,
See that?
Oh, yeah.
So this is a volcanic rock. This is from one of the volcanoes nearby where I live. And it's really light. This rock's really, really light because there's so many holes in it. So there's lots of air in it. So it's really light. But then this rock here, which is actually also from a volcano nearby, it's really heavy because there's no air bubbles and it's got lots of iron in it and heavy metals. So it makes it really heavy. So some rocks are just heavy because they've got minerals in them that make them heavy, like metals. But then some rocks are pretty light because they have nice air bubbles in them, so they don't have as much stuff in them, or they're, as we call it less dense. There's not as much stuff packed in on them.
Well,
That's a great question.
Well, my teacher has a volcano rock at our school, and it's real.
Really cool. That's awesome.
It's actually ash.
Oh, neat.
Why are some rocks flat?
That's a great question. So that we can bring back out this rock that I have. So this is one way to make a rock flat. This is the smooth river rock that I showed you guys earlier. It's flat because it got nice and rounded and smoothed by the river. But some rocks are flat because that's how they're deposited. A lot of sedimentary rocks, I don't know if you guys have studied those in class there, but when a lot of pieces settle down and form layers and they start to get compressed, those form flat rocks. There are a lot of ways that rocks become flat, but in this case, this is one that was flattened by getting weathered in a river, so the water just kind of flowed over it and maybe around it and under it and smoothed it out and made it flat. Great question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why can't you break rocks?
Oh. Be right back. So this is one of the tools that I have here in my office. This is called a rock hammer, and we actually use this in the field to break rocks. So you would, well, first of all, you'd wear safety glasses, which I don't have nearby, so I won't be breaking any rocks for you because I don't have my safety glasses. But out in the field, we take these hammers, and if we want to break off a rock to take back to the lab to look at, we will break it off of the outcrop and take it home. So it's hard to break rocks, yeah, but if you have a rock hammer, this is a really easy way to break them, but you have to wear safety glasses if you want to break rocks with a rock hammer. Thanks for the question. Good question. Good thing I had this prop nearby.